Yeah, man. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, as we now enter the Fort Stewart area of Enfield, this is what it used to be back in the days when I was a kid coming up, right? There was a wonderful walk from Anatomy, which is a little town that will take you right into Enfield. Now, back in the 60s and the 70s, growing up in Enfield was a wonderful, beautiful place. Everybody knows everybody, and it was a place where you can have fun, people share, and it was just a wonderful, beautiful experience as a kid growing up in this Enfield. So we just want you to understand that back in the days, I was extremely poor. My mom and dad were very, very poor. We could not afford much of anything, much less anything. And I want to tell you this, my grandmother, because I didn't get a chance to know my grandfather, but my grandmother was extremely rich. But for some reason, she just didn't like the children of Rodney Sinclair, which is my father. She always turned a bad eye when it comes to us. We couldn't get nothing from the property. Matter of fact, even if we were hungry, and me and my brother Glenn and my sister Janet and Una, because those were the ones that were actually at that age in that time growing up in Enfield, we dare not go to my grandmother's property and take anything. You can't take a breadfruit, you cannot take a pear, you cannot take a tangerine, and you cannot take an orange, because she disliked us so much. She told me at one time that, Claude, you're not a stone. You do not belong to my son, Rodney. And I felt very bad as a kid growing up. I really, really felt bad, because everybody had a grandparent that they used to hug and kiss and so on. But I never had the opportunity to hold my grandmother and hug her and tell her how much I love her and appreciate her. You know, my father's mother. And it still bothers me to this day to know that I've done so much with my life. You know, I've met a lot of people, I've been introduced to a lot of grandparents and so on, but I've never had the opportunity to actually sit down with my grandmother, you know, and have a rapport. So it really hurts. This is part of the journey that really hurts, but guess what? It's gonna get better. Alright, so to sit tight. This little bridge here can only hold one vehicle at a time. I remember when I was about 5 years old, because I used to play in the river, I came down with pneumonia. And me coming down with pneumonia, my father had a 150 bike, I'll never forget. And I took sick, say about 1 o'clock in the morning, and my father would put me on that little 150 bike and ride me all the way in the dark, because picture this, there was no street light, there was no form of electricity in the 60s growing up in Enfield. So in the pitch of darkness, my father would you know, ride and take us to the hospital using this stretch of road. Very dark, very, very dark. Alright? So stay tuned, the journey continues with Big Stone and the trek to Enfield. God.